You can scale the job, you can fit it to the media, you can center it on the media if you want as well. You can change the layout, you can arrange it a variety of different ways. Whatever you think it works best for you to get the required number on here. And if I want to change the quantity, just under copy, I can type in the number, or I can just hit the up or down arrow as well. So I'm going to just put maybe 4 on here. That fits really nice. And then I'm going to move to the next setting, which is quality. Again, under quality, you can pick the media type. Just to give you an idea, there's a list of different materials that can be printed on. In addition to our stalls materials, we can also do vehicle wraps, banners, backlit sign banners, floor graphics, all kinds of different stuff can be created with this machine. The ideal situation is that you have a profile that's already created. Stalls has worked with Roland to develop a specific print profile for this material. The benefit of that is that things like your cutting force, cutting speed, heater, dryer temperatures, the speed of your print heads, they're all predetermined, so you don't have to make any manual adjustments to those settings. So as soon as you've loaded the material in there, all that stuff is done for you, which is really nice. Which is why a lot of this is actually grayed out. If this was a material that we didn't have a setting for, you could make changes to this as well. We also have a color management section too. Again, I really don't use this very often because I'm using VersaWorks, which is an Adobe PostScript. It recognizes all the correct colors from Adobe products such as Illustrator or Photoshop, as well as CorelDRAW. But if you wanted to make changes to this, you could do that there. Under marks, this is a section that you would use quite a bit. A lot of times you'll want to print a job with crop marks on it and cut it later after the inks have had some time to cure. The reason for that is if you cut into the ink right away, sometimes what can happen is the graphic will curl a little bit. So by putting crop marks on it, re-registering the job and printing it later, it makes it much easier to weed and mask. In addition to that, you can also add job properties. Things like notes, you can put a PO number, customer number on there, your settings, whatever you want. You may be able to see they've actually shown up right here on the job. If I zoom in, down here on the bottom, you can see that actually it's applied that directly to the artwork. In this case, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just sort of showing you, so I'm actually going to eliminate those things from my settings. And I'll just zoom back out here. So our next one is printer controls. By default, if you're using a product like our solutions that has a profile developed before it, it'll actually have all of your calibrations are set to use default media settings, and that's ideal. So again, there's a benefit to dealing with Roland and partnering up with stalls, because it just makes your life a lot easier in that regard. So heater controls, vacuum settings, feed calibrations can all be manually adjusted as well, but in this case there's no need. Under cut controls, you've got 3 options. We have a print cut function, which will basically print the job and cut it right away. We also have a print only, which is what you would use if you were putting crop marks on the job and then cutting it again later. And then we have cut only, which would be what we would use after we've taken that job, re-registered it, and we're now ready to cut it. For this particular piece of our work, we're going to do a print and cut right away. Another couple of neat functions too. One of them is the cut image boundaries. So if you're using a JPEG, which is a raster-based image, you can actually just set it to cut image boundaries. Most JPEGs are square. It'll just cut that right out for you, so you don't actually have to put a cut line around it, which is a nice little feature. Last 2 sections, job management. Basically, you can specify the input folder. So I have a file folder called VersaWorks Print Jobs. So as soon as I go to add a job to the queue, that's the first place that it defaults and looks for the job. And then I also have it set to save the job after the output as well. And the last section is the clip and tile. So you can actually clip and tile sections of this stuff out of here. So if you wanted to print only certain sections of it, you could do that as well. So once you've decided what all the settings are going to be, down here on the bottom we have the rip option, and what that does is it takes all of your settings that you've just applied and applies them to that particular job. You can see it shows up in the rip queue, and then it's going to apply all those settings. So it's going to know we're ready to print. So we just click print, and you'll see the job move up to the print queue and process. It's basically communicating with the printer right now and telling it to go ahead. And these are pretty good sized logos too. I believe these logos are 5 inches. And you'll get a good feel for how quickly the machine can lay out and print logos with this kind of detail. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a print speed of about 63 square feet per hour. On this particular material, I believe we're around 27 square feet per hour. Which still allows you, especially if you're doing smaller logos for left chest or caps, things like that, you can produce them very, very quickly with this machine. Cut speeds 30 centimeters per second. As you can see, it's cutting that out pretty quickly there. Okay, so we finished printing the job and cutting it. We're now ready to weed and mask it. So the tools you'll need, basically a weeder, a squeegee, a pair of scissors, a piece of the mask, and then of course your graphic. So the easiest way to do this is just start with your weeder and grab the corner, and you'll notice right away the top layer basically peels up off of the carrier. It's actually a 3-layer material. This stuff is pretty easy to weed. You just pull it towards the edge and it comes right off. It's actually, if it's cured properly, it's easier to weed than a lot of the film products. So that's it. You pull the excess away. Now you're left with the graphic on the carrier. We'll take a piece of the mask, because you're going to need to lift that graphic off of the carrier. And just separate the mask from the yellow backing. All the backing is just to keep it from sticking to everything. You can reuse that backing actually to store these logos. They'll actually store for up to 3 years. Lay the mask down over the top, and then what you want to do is actually just use a squeegee just to get the bubbles out. And once you've done that, all you have to do is just peel back on the mask and it should lift the graphic up off the carrier. You don't want to pull it off there too quickly. If you're having difficulty with this process, check and see how much scoring you have on the carrier. Remember that your blade only needs to be exposed enough to cut through that first layer of material, and that's very, very thin at only 55 microns. So once you've done that, you're ready to heat apply. If you want, you can put it back on the yellow backing, and like I said earlier, you could actually store that if you want. Masking it, bring it over to your heat press, and we just peeled it off that yellow carrier, lined it up on the garment. And we're using a Teflon pillow. I always recommend those. They just work out really nice for keeping wrinkles out of it. And we're also using a Hotronix air swinger press. So once you're ready, the only thing you really need is a craft sheet. You just place the craft sheet over the top of this. You're going to set it at 305 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 seconds, and you're actually going to do that twice. So bring it over, hit it for 5 seconds at about a medium pressure. And this is a hot peel. Just take your craft sheet off, peel that off, cover it with the craft paper. It's good to use craft paper instead of Teflon. Hit it again. The reason for that is the Teflon sheets have a weave in them that will actually show up in the graphic. And that's it. Very good. So just a quick recap. Stahl's Cad Colour Solutions. It's an opaque heat transfer material, again, which is great. You can use it on any color garment. It doesn't matter because of the opacity. Again, it's very thin. It's got a very soft hand. It's got a great stretch and rebound on it. I mean, that's on spandex, and it just pops right back in. Doesn't distort the color, and it looks great. Again, produced with large format inkjet printers. The Roland printers are what we use, and their software. Again, it can be applied to nylon, cotton, polyester, cotton poly blends, lycra, spandex, the list goes on and on. It's a very exciting new product from Stahl's, and we actually have a few more that are on the way as well, so all using the same process.